Welcome back to Pause to Pray. Again, I hope that you are well. There was a preacher talking to a congregation, and his subject was from Romans chapter 12, verse 15. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. And during the time of worship that had preceded what he was saying, they'd experienced something of God's coming alongside them, encouraging them, being with them, lifting their spirit, helping them. At the end of what he had to say, he turned to the people there and he said, "It's time for us to do something." So I want you to turn to your neighbours, to a family friend, to somebody that it will be open to you, and ask them to share something of a struggle or a pain in their life, a painful memory perhaps. And as they began to do this amongst each other, listening carefully to each other, they began to express a godly comfort towards each other. So imagine that, all these people around the room in little groups, seeking to come alongside hurting people, expressing comfort. Now the preacher said that he was standing at the back of the room and watching this, and in came a man. He was in his 30s. He was nice looking. He was casually dressed, and he asked the question, "What are they doing?" And the preacher said, "They're comforting one another." And the man watched for a bit, and then tears began to form in his eyes. And he said, "That's what I need." The preacher began to ask the man, what's happening with you right now? And he explained that his job at Kennedy Space Center had been in jeopardy due to cutbacks. Furthermore, that he'd been through the pain of placing his mother into a nursing home. And then there'd been a breakup with his fiancée. So here was a young man in a world of hurt. He needed comfort. In our present time, many people are in a world of hurt. They're in need of comfort. And that's what I'd like us to think about for a short while today. But let's just pause. Maybe that's you. Maybe there's a word that God would want to speak into your life to bring comfort. Maybe there's some help that you need in this, just to be encouraged. So let's just pause for a moment or two, be quiet, and offer ourselves to God afresh. In the Old Testament, we read a point in the life of the people of Israel, the Jewish people, a crisis that had occurred of vast proportions. They'd been invaded. They had been, their city had been destroyed. Their temple had been destroyed, and so many of them had been deported into captivity. They were a broken people. They were a dismayed people. They were in distress. And so many people around us might identify with that feeling of so much has been taken from them, feeling that so much has changed in their lives, feeling the real need for some encouragement into their life. And God spoke to Isaiah and said, "Take this message to them." And this is what he said. It's from Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 1 and 2. "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard surface has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins." And there's a story there which we won't go into about how Israel had gotten into that awful place. But here was God coming out of love and out of compassion, out of a commitment to his people to say, but I'm still with you. I want you to know that as you face the future, as you face what lies ahead, I'll be with you. So what does that word comfort mean? And in the original language, the Hebrew language, the people that the language that Isaiah would have spoken, it perhaps means something a little bit different to what we think of today. When we think of comfort, we often think of something cozy and warm and soothing and perhaps cuddly and just nice. Whereas actually the Hebrew is much more about strengthening somebody. It's about encouraging somebody. It's about giving them courage to face what lies ahead. So how can we strengthen one another? And I think it's a marvelous thing that in our country at the moment, there are so many things that we see about organizations, schools sending out laptops so that children in their homes can learn and grow and find that their education can continue. Lots and lots of ways in which organizations are seeking to support and help. Food, meals, visits, phone calls, all sorts of things are happening. In our own church, we think about our support for Gloucester Food Bank and the way that is reaching out. And I read earlier today that Trussell Trust, the organisation that our food bank is part of, and there's 148 organizations in this network, last year delivered just short of 2 million meals to the people of this country. That's a tremendous encouragement. That's strengthening people in need. And then in a smaller scale, in our own church, we have Box of Hope. Again, parcels of food going out to local people that we've realized and identified as people who need encouragement. They need strengthening in the situations they're in. These are good things. Maybe a question to ask then is, what can we do? How can we help at our own personal micro level? Who could we talk to? Who could we ring? What neighbour could we talk to? Yesterday, Susan and I were out walking and there was somebody sat in their front room window looking out and clearly on their own, and she was waving across the road, so we waved back, and in that moment or two there was a little bit of connection, there was a little bit of encouragement, a bit of comfort, a bit of strengthening. She was not for that moment alone. And there must be so many things that we can do, so I'll just encourage you to think about that. But you know, the greatest comfort we can have in our lives does come from God. It comes from his love. It comes from his strength. It comes from his steadfast commitment and faithfulness to us, to everyone, wanting to reach out to us to help us. And I like to just finish with reading some verses from the Bible that remind us of the kind of God that we can turn to and trust and find real comfort from. Comfort from people around us, comfort from different organizations in our country. That's wonderful. But the greatest of comfort will come from the love of God. So here's a few passages. Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Psalm 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's a telling phrase, isn't it? Is that where you are today, crushed in spirit? God says, I'm close to the brokenhearted. And then John 14, verse 1, Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. believe in God, believe also in me. And then Romans 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. That sometimes the circumstances around us lead us to a place where we say, what is going on? What's the point of this? Where is God? And yet God is there alongside us and with us. And perhaps with hindsight, we're going to see that very clearly. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Those who are broken in their spirit, those who have loss in their lives. God says, I will be alongside you. I will help you. And then finally, if we go back to Isaiah chapter 40 and verses 29 to 31, we read these really great words. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. God wants to bring comfort into our lives in the form of that which strengthens us and encourages us and helps us to face what we do each day. May God bless you.